Hey guys, Veebat here with another V-Plays, and this is another request for taking a second look at the Yak-15. I hadn't built the tables yet when I did the review of this airframe, and honestly I said it was a keeper back when I did the initial review, and I'll say it again. This aircraft is a stellar airframe. It's a stellar airframe and does really well in almost every battle I bring it into. There's only a few instances that I find myself in a situation where I just can't affect the battle. Before we get too far into it, this setup, I hate this setup, this asymmetric map thing where you got two garrisons flanking your spawn, you have an airfield or air base in front of you, and then the enemy also has the command center right there. So typically your bots are going to disperse to the two garrisons while the enemy team kind of has first dibs on these two very critical pieces of the terrain here, these two critical objectives. The command center bringing in bombers as an offensive zone, no fair, and then the airfield. So I decide I'm going straight for the airfield. I'm going to take advantage of this bot control mechanics. I'm immediately going to trigger people to start heading in this direction. You'll note that I started pegging different aircraft with some shots. Like I took a few shots at one, a few shots at another, and then it wasn't until I settled on that one that I ended up taking it out. I went for that one air defense aircraft because one, it was on low health, and two, it was engaging another aircraft. You are never at your most vulnerable as you are when you're on a target. Like right now, I'm really worried that somebody's going to be on my tail, so I'm constantly looking at that mini-map. Because when I'm on a target, he may be wiggling and waggling all over the place, but if he's further away from me and I'm trying to maintain my guns on target, I'm actually going to be maneuvering less than he will. Like my change in direction isn't going to be as much because I'm really kind of looking at him through a soda straw at long range. And if the enemy has any brains, like I don't just watch the plane I'm shooting, I watch the plane that plane is shooting. Right? So if he's shooting at my ally and my ally just turned left, I know he's about to turn left. So then I can pull lead on that target. So I'm engaging aircraft that are otherwise engaged. Like that guy was engaging one of our aircraft. I knew that and I went after him. Same thing over here. We see that there's that, what is that? Corsair was going after that bot, went after the Corsair. And that's usually your best bet. So you're going to see that theme reoccurring where you're going after aircraft that are otherwise engaged. This guy is being silly and came into the zone and is kind of operating on his own. And in a multi-role, you never want to be in a zone by yourself. You always want to have allies, and you never want to go into a zone that's contested by the enemy if you can avoid it. So not the best move on his part. If I was a multi-role in this map, I probably would be hitting all of the garrisons right now and then working my way around through the enemy lines in the back. That would be a really good move. But these are bots, so what are we really talking about here? So, Yak-15. Let's talk about this airplane since this is supposed to be a re-review, right? The reasons I like this aircraft way more than the Yak-1, Yak-1M, Yak-3 is because those aircraft sacrifice a lot in the speed department in order to get their maneuverability. The way I kind of see it is the game has a balancing mechanic, and at each tier it gets a bigger pool of points that it can spend in order to kind of hit those sliders on the capabilities of the airframe. And that's how I think the developers essentially do it. Like you can have at tier 6 you get a total of 25 points, and at tier 7 you get a total of 30 points to spend, and you know, it's like leveling up. You just get more skill points you can kind of align to different attributes. So when it came to the Yak-1, Yak-1M, and Yak-3, what they ended up having to sacrifice to get that really amazing turn time is going to be velocity. And the guns as well, because what is it? It's like a single 20 and then a couple of machine guns. If only one machine gun, like it's not spectacular, and it's dissimilar weapons, so it's kind of meh. I'm not a big fan of dissimilar weapons. If I can avoid it, I usually try to. Doesn't mean there aren't good airframes with dissimilar weapons, it's just not a favorite of mine. So when you get to the Yak-15, however, at tier 8, there must be enough points to be spending to be able to get the maneuverability and get the decent airspeed, because you'll see that I have the ability, when I kick the nose down a little bit and I hammer that boost, I can get up to and sustain about 400 miles an hour if I need to get to another zone. And one of my biggest complaints for a lot of these aircraft at the lower tiers was that if, let's say, I was playing on a map with 5 garrisons, if I was trying to go after that zone and I captured it, now I got to go to another zone. There isn't like a good spot in the middle of the battlefield like an airfield or a military base to be defending. Then I got to trug my happy butt all the way across the map to go to another garrison. How do I get there? And how do I get there in a decent amount of time to be helpful to my team? Here, I tap the boost once and I'm already up over 300 miles an hour. I would struggle to get that in some of those Yak-1 and Yak-1M aircraft. It just wouldn't get there. The other thing is these 23s are tier 10 23 cannons. These are the same 23s that you get on the MiG-15, the MiG-19, the Yak-19, the Yak-30, the LA-15. These are the 23s that can reach out past, what is it, 2,300 feet, which is substantial. And they have good rate of fire, they cool down pretty quick, and really good accuracy. You can see we already locked in Wing Legend here. These multi-rolls just kept feeding me. They just kept coming into the zone. They try to go for an air-to-ground drop, and when they did the air-to-ground drop, I just snuck in behind them and killed them over and over and over again. It just was so methodical. It wasn't that difficult, to be honest. But what I really like about having increased range on these guns is that, one, combine that with the engine power I have, I'm able to get up above that 4,000 foot threshold of where my aircraft should be. I can get up to 5,000 easy. And then the guns, if they can fire another 2,000 plus, that means I can theoretically be shooting up to like 8,000 feet in the vertical if I have to go shoot down an aircraft. So, I mean, that's not the best thing in the world to be doing that, but how many times have you been in kind of a low altitude turn fighter and somebody gets up above you like a heavy and he just goes up and you can't do anything about it, or he's engaging your ally over your head and you can't help him out? Another example would be going after a military facility and the air defense aircraft there are 2 heavy fighters. And your allies are killing those heavy fighters, or they're struggling, and you could save them if you could just get your nose up there and just be able to get a few shots to get them off of one of your heavy's tails or one of your bomber's tails. That's where I start to get frustrated. But this aircraft does have the capability to do that, and we just did the Yak-19 review, and it definitely does as well have that ability. So there's something to be said for as soon as you transition over to jets when it comes to these turn fighters. For the Russian line, they just come into their own and become a very capable piece of machinery. And yeah, you have really low hit points, but it doesn't much matter if you're playing effectively and you're just kind of operating as that turny glass cannon. And I said it in the previous review, I said the guns on this aircraft are amazing. And somebody equated that to being the damage output. Well, there's different types of damage output. There's the paper damage value where you're like, oh, that has 400 damage per second. Be like, yeah, in ideal circumstances, if you can get all the guns to hit and they're hitting consistently. But with these 23s, they're really easy to get on target, really easy to get to hit, and they cool down very easily. So effectively, they're very effective guns. It's probably a better description. And I have very consistent results with these. Anybody who's flown an ME-262 can attest to the concept that just because you've got good high-powered guns doesn't necessarily equate to good functional, like, it's not regular consistent hits, especially in the early stages of flying a 262. Those Mark 108s just loft through the air like you're chucking a handful of rocks at a pond, trying to hit like a really small target. Like, you're just the shotgun effect, and you're just hoping that they hit where they're supposed to go. So even though the damage numbers on paper are really high DPM, it's functional damage isn't nearly the same as it would be if you had like 420s. So just something to bear in mind, and kind of my thoughts. Anyways, let's go to the hangar and talk about the results, because clearly this was a stellar game. All right, so that went fairly well. Uh, we've already reviewed this aircraft, so I feel like I'm kind of reiterating the point here, but the Yak 15 for me was when the low Yak number line ended up working out really well. So like your Yak 1s, your Yak 3s, I hated those things. They were too slow. The maneuverability was there. The gunpowder wasn't quite what I was looking for. But the Yak 15 with similar guns, the two 23 millimeters, none of this machine gun cannon combo, retains that same really good maneuverability, but now as a jet and can get up to about 400 miles an hour and then sustain that. That's really what I'm looking for. And that range on the guns allows you to be able to shoot up to those higher altitudes like we were at the end of that match going after that 109. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to kill him, but I can at least deter him. I can let him know that I'm there. I can make myself a threat to him, so that way he can't just run around killing whatever he wants at higher altitude with no repercussions. He knows that if he gets below about 7,000 feet, I can potentially cause him some trouble. So I do like that, and this is when I started to enjoy the Yak turn fighters. And everybody I was talking to before, when I said, I hate this Yak 1, I hate this Yak 3, they said to me, V, wait till you get to the Yak 15, it's a total game changer, and they were 100% right. The Yak 15 is a lot easier to fly, a lot more fun to fly, and as you can see, comes out with some pretty spectacular results. This isn't even the battle I wanted to show you guys. The battle I wanted to show you was the one I thought I was recording, and it was a lower result match, but I was playing against two players the whole time. We had somebody drop out in that last match, which is unfortunate, but this was a good match. You can see the enemy two players are towards the top of the team. One of them racked up a very good score of 13,000. We had Beto RS over here, which is the guy that's always flying with Regis. I think he said it was essentially pronounced like Eugene Regis. I think I'm getting that based on the phonetic you put in the comments a couple weeks ago. But yeah, him and Beto RS usually fly together. I was just fortunate enough to catch Beto on his own. And yeah, we had a great time, and it was a really good battle. And we both got pretty decent scores in that match, and I was able to rack up quite a few kills. We got that Akamatsu, the McCampbell, Guardian, Wing Legend, and this was the one I thought I was going to use. And then I finished the match and realized the recording wasn't going, so we had to settle for an ace. It sounds silly, but when you have somebody drop out right at the beginning of the match because they got killed, that's unfortunate. I'm not sure if they dropped. They were in the initial part of the battle. They killed 4 aircraft before I took them out, so I don't know what happened, but unfortunately, they left the match, and that left their team at a serious disadvantage, being down somebody in a very good Tier 7 fighter. I've heard nothing but great things about the Key 84, and I actually skipped that part of the line, and I'm not necessarily kicking myself over that, but people are telling me that I really should go back and give it a shot. Maybe that's something for later, but for the time being, Yak 15. I have gone with Engine Guru on the pilot. I've also gone with Aerodynamic Expert because, as far as I'm concerned, getting this aircraft as much engine power as possible is what I wanted, because I wanted to have a light fighter that could do all the turny-burny fighting things, and it's doesn't have as many competitors at this tier for turn and burn fighters, and then be able to go to another zone and be able to maintain that speed with a higher engine power off of Engine Guru 2 or Engine Guru 1 rather, and then optimizing the operated engine using Aerodynamic Expert. It allows us to be able to not only get up to over 400 miles an hour, but then sustain the over 400 miles an hour. We can get this up to theoretically 500 miles an hour off of the boost, as you can see right here. I am strongly contemplating making this a little bit more of a speed build in order to try and make this a real surprise factor, because as it stands right now with an 8.1 second turn time, this thing is, it's just breakneck turning capability. Like this thing's ability to do a low speed high burst turn, like that kind of instantaneous turn where you kind of get the aircraft a little bit slow and you hammer down the boost and it kicks that tail around for a good 180. This thing's impeccable, and then even without that, an 8.1 second turning time, are you kidding me? This thing's ludicrous. And this paint job, if I'm not mistaken, actually gives you an increase to the cruise speed, so why the heck not? When I got this aircraft, I immediately said it was a keeper, even without it being fully upgraded, and fully upgraded, it's amazing. I can't imagine the devastation that a specialized version of a Yak 15 would be. So maybe I've been going on for a little bit long here, but those are good battles. I've had nothing but good battles in this plane for 3 battles in a row, and it never disappoints. So if you guys are working down the Yak line and kind of finding it a little bit boring or tedious for whatever reason, hold on, because you're about to get the Yak 15, and the Yak 15 was spectacular. Yeah, you can even see her. The Yak 3, I got 23,000 XP and never even got far enough to buy the Yak 15. I just couldn't handle it anymore. Ugh. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll catch you on the next one.